Let's explore how meditation could shape your future. I guess it would be prudent to verify that the microphone's working. Splendid. This morning's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. Quite simply, how does meditation help in the future? The individual wrote, quite succinctly, how does meditating and exercising when you are not anxious help you in the future when you actually are feeling anxious? We're going to begin with broad brushstrokes and then explore fine details. We can learn about meditation by taking martial arts as our example. There are some martial arts that are utterly worthless when it comes to application. Martial arts that depend upon memory and reasoning and fine motor skills will fail you in a situation of peril. Why is that? Blood mass, functional magnetic resonance imaging studies, or fMRIs, have demonstrated that in different circumstances, our blood mass shifts in our brains. And depending upon where the location of the blood mass has a huge effect upon how the brain functions. When our brain assesses that we are, or when our body assesses that we are in peril, our blood mass is directed away from our prefrontal cortex. We are only capable of the most basic, gross motor movements. Relying upon anything that depends upon reason or recall will fail us. That is why at the onset of World War II, when they had to train vast numbers of people rapidly, they recruited veterans of foreign wars as well as pugilists and found the simplest techniques, a simple palette of basic techniques that could be applied to any scenario. Armed, unarmed, multiple attackers, single attackers, grappling, kicking, striking, the whole 9 yards, the whole Megillah. The same thing works with meditation. If we try to think our way out of anxiety, it's going to be horribly ineffectual. Well, it reminds me of the wonderful saw, the wonderful chestnut. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Do not try to teach the pig to sing. It will waste your time and annoy the pig. Similarly, when we rely upon our prefrontal cortex to manage the anxiety of our amygdala at the base of our limbic system, it's not going to help with our anxiety, but as a fringe benefit, it's going to exhaust our prefrontal cortex, which could mirror the symptoms of depression. Then we go from just having generalized anxiety disorder to having both generalized anxiety disorder and clinical depression. We've fallen from the frying pan into the fire. Nobody needs that. When mindfulness is done properly, we're relying not even upon our brain proper, but upon our autonomic nervous system located not in the brain, but in the spinal cord. This is very, very primal. When we train in proper mindfulness, noticing things vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, and doing so in harmony with our inhalation, we are relying upon our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. When we exhale, we are accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, found in both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord as well as the tippy top of its cervical region. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to support both physical relaxation and, consequently, mental release. We have been respirating literally all our lives. Respiration isn't controlled by prefrontal cortex. It's controlled by the medulla oblongata region of our brain stem. It is autonomic. It is part of our autonomic nervous system. And it is the only thing we can rely upon while alive in every circumstance, with every emotion, with whatever befalls us, whether what befalls us is external, internal, physical, mental, pleasurable, painful, interesting, boring, glorious, or grotesque. As long as we are able to breathe, we're able to access our autonomic nervous system. The more time we spend in meditation, I'm thinking beginning 5 minutes every 12 hours or so, for instance, first thing for instance, before work and after work. The more we do this, the more of a habit we form. The neuroscience of habit formation can be likened to that which we observe when going for a walk or a light hike. We might notice what some people could describe as goat paths that are maybe 3 or 4 inches wide. Then we see other paths that are 1 meter or 2 meters wide. The idea is that the more people who walk through a path, the wider and wider and wider it becomes. The more hard-packed the soil becomes, the less treacherous that path becomes. Similarly, the more we practice the vulnerability of mindfulness and a release of meditation, the more, number one, those skills, the deliberate access of those skills becomes a greater and greater habit. But number two, proper mindfulness is vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. Some of the things that come up are boring. Some of them are intense. Some of them are pleasurable. Some of them are painful. Some of them fill us with pride. Some of them fill us with shame. By being vulnerable to the full spectrum of human experience, we are increasing the probability that regardless of what we experience, mindfulness and meditation will be our go-to move. But, you might ask, won't that make us just a worthless bump on a log? Won't that make us just a pathetic doormat of a person? Here's the wild thing. The more we make the mistake of relying on active concentration and active contemplation, the more we're going to excite the amygdala at the base of our limbic system, that is the seat of both aggression and anxiety. Bad news. However, the more we trade active concentration for passive mindfulness, the more we trade active contemplation for passive meditation, the more our blood mass will shift away from our anxious amygdala to our empathetic anterior cingulate gyrus, located just a few centimeters behind our forehead. This hunk of meat functions as the hub of our mirror neurons and the seat of empathy and compassion and love. This is why the highest Dzogchen Lamas of Tibet have insisted that the greatest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. One of the fruits of training in mindfulness and meditation is love's centered spontaneity. The more that our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from love's centered spontaneity, the more resourceful we will be in each area of our life, the more intellectually, interpersonally, and circumstantially resourceful we will be. And so one of the great ironies is that this contrived training in mindfulness and meditation is crucial to our performance in the arena of the spontaneous. Children in kindergarten are taught to write their ABCs and their numbers. In elementary school, they are able to assemble those letters and numbers into words and sentences and paragraphs and essays, and those numbers into the expression of progressively more and more complex mathematics. The great sports athletic trainers have insisted that the key to excellence is mastery of the basics. And whenever a professional athlete falls into a slump, what are they told to do? Go back to basics. That is exactly what we're doing when we are training in correct mindfulness and meditation. I do look forward to exploring finer details with you, as well as chanting and meditating, after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I would like very much to introduce you to the heart treasure of the enlightened ones, the practice of view, meditation, and action, discourse virtues in the beginning, middle, and end. This is felt by many to be Zalpatul Rinpoche's final meditation manual. As a late adolescent, he wrote his most famous meditation manual, described as the words of my perfect teacher. To be honest, the attitudes described in that book, could be rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. It has been said that some people gain 10 years of experience, while other people only experience 1 year's of experience repeated 10 times. That does not describe Zalpatul Rinpoche. He kept growing, he kept evolving, until finally he forsook the path of Devadatta and embraced the true path of the Buddha, the path of being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. And this reflects in his very concise final meditation manual, written not in prose, but in verse. So let us chant an excerpt of the Dalai Lama's foreword. Zalpaltra Rinpoche Jigme Chokyu Wangpo was a great bodhisattva who came to Tibet, the land of the snows, in more recent times. This great sublime and learned practitioner gave this teaching known as the instruction that is good in the beginning, middle, and end. The heart jewel of the sacred practice of the view, meditation, and conduct for the benefit of those desiring liberation. It comprises all the essential instructions, and because of the profound meaning it contains and the beautiful language in which it is expressed, it really is like an elixir for reviving the dead. High praise from the Dalai Lama. When you read other forwards about the Dalai Lama, they are perfunctory. This is gushing. One moment. So, together as a team, let us begin chipping away at the Eightfold Path, the mastery of which is simply enlightenment. Let's begin with mindfulness, the seventh fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. As we described during the opening bit, every time we breathe in, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our sympathetic nervous system. Just want to double check to make sure the microphone's working, because if it didn't, that would be really lame. Every time we breathe in, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our sympathetic nervous system. No, it is not found in our brain proper. It is found in our spinal cord, specifically the thoracic or ribcage region. No, it has not evolved to indulge either extreme of mind blanking or active concentration. Instead, it evolved to support our perception. More specifically, it helps us perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Perception is the price of mindfulness, the key that unlocks its door. Few things make us feel quite as vulnerable as being naked, especially when those around us are not naked. Perhaps that is why this archetype is depicted. The two individuals comprising this meditation archetype are depicted as naked. During our inhalation, let us kick back and simply watch the antics of mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. We can do this while silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this. During our exhalation, let's relax into mind's non-graspable nature. As silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. I'm advancing my thumb during each inhalation. If we're not supposed to rely on active concentration, then what do we do with our breath? Simple. We treat our breath the way a piano student of yore would treat their metronome. When we feel our body breathing in, we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. When we feel our body breathing out, we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease. So there's a chance that the display may be skewed because I pressed something on the number pad. So let me check on that bad boy. Please chant with me. Namo Loke Namo Lokeshvaraya. If but a single drop of the nectar of your name were to fall upon my ears, they would be filled with the sound of Dharma for countless lives. Wondrous three jewels, may the brilliance of your renown bring perfect happiness everywhere. So how about a quick review? We learned that every time we inhale, we are wired to practice the seventh fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, which is mindfulness. We are wired to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, as well as emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. But what are we to do with that which we notice? Well, that brings us to meditation, which is the eighth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our parasympathetic nervous system ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord as well as the tippy top of the cervical region. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. And let's get interesting. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could seem less tangible. Now, since all complex life forms on this planet evolved to think symbolically, let us silently and mentally let us add some figurative language into the mix. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, any good English teacher could remind us that a simile such as that is only as useful as it is relatable. So we have to ask the question, what is a real-world, tangible example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is intangible to the hand? Perhaps that is why this archetype of meditation is depicted as translucent and as non-graspable as a rainbow. Let us continue. Let's discuss a meditation teacher's limitations together. Like some specimens in the autumn, which though inside still unripe look ripe outside. I myself am just the semblance of a Dharma practitioner, and since my mind and the Dharma have not mixed, my Dharma teaching will not be up to much. Let us explore the first of 3 sets of fringe benefits of regularly training in mindfulness and meditation. As we explored during the opening lesson. Oh, good morning, Jay. As we explored during the opening lesson, sadly, the more we rely on active concentration as well as active contemplation, the more our blood collects and gathers around our amygdala at the base of our limbic system, the seat of anxiety and aggression. However, when we replace active concentration with passive mindfulness, when we replace active contemplation with passive meditation, this blood shifts to our anterior cingulate gyrus. The sunken meat is located just a few centimeters behind our forehead and functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy and compassion and love. This is why the greatest Dzogchen Lamas of Tibet have insisted that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. This is also why this archetype of meditation, Lama Yabyum, is depicted as beautiful. Let us chant a quatrain exploring that one might teach meditation without treachery. But since you worthy friend and treat me insistently, I cannot refuse, I will speak out frankly. Unusual though it is in this decadent age, I offer you these words without treachery, so listen well. This next quatrain will explore the means and instruction of enlightenment. The Turishi, the Munindra God of gods. Attain the true level through the true path, and truly show this true and excellent path to others. Is that not why he is known as the true Rishi? In the Mahayana Paninibbana Sutta, it is recorded that upon his metaphoric deathbed, as the Buddha lay dying, he explained, I have taught with an outstretched arm and an open hand, keeping no secrets. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, and not in the fun, tingly way. Therefore, it should come as little surprise that 90% of the so-called meditation teachers are more interested in being rigid, fearful, and controlling than they are in being flexible, loving, and laid back. If your teacher is more excited about keeping secrets, if your teacher is more excited about elitism than egalitarianism, find a better teacher. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, type your question in great detail in the chat window. Let us practice mindfulness by silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. Let us practice meditation by silently and mentally reciting the one-syllable verb ease, a synonym for relax, during each exhalation. The next chant will explore the twisting of thoughts, speech, and deeds, the illusion of free will. Alas for the... Please chant with me. Alas for the people in this age of residues. The mind, soul, and core of truth has withered, and people live deceitfully. So their thoughts are warped, their speech is twisted. They cunningly mislead others who can trust them. This next quatrain could explore discouragement, distrust, and consideration, the viciousness of late-stage capitalism, together. Alas, how discouraging to see the beings of this degenerate age. Alas, can anyone trust what anyone says? It is like living in a land of vicious man-eating demons. Think about it and do yourself a big favor. Let us practice mindfulness and meditation. This next quatrain, divided over 4 pages, will explore the play of interdependence and impermanence together. Not long ago your consciousness was wandering alone. Sorry, I said wonder should be Okay, wonder and wander is very difficult for me to pronounce. Let's try this again. Not long ago your consciousness was wandering alone. Swept along by karma, it took this present path. Soon like a hair pulled out of butter. Leaving everything behind, you will go on again alone. During our inhalation, let us kick back and watch the play of mind. As silently and mentally we recite this. During our exhalation, let us relax into mind's non-graspable nature. As silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb, ease. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Let us explore the squandering of a precious opportunity. Of course, what we want is our own good, so we have to be honest with our own selves. If we do not accomplish the essence of the Dharma for our own sake, I'm going to... what I'm going to do is pluck out a synonym, or replace a synonym. Okay. If we do not master the essence of the Dharma for our own sake, will we not be squandering our own life's opportunity? So I see a question out of the corner of my eye, and I will address that momentarily. Okay, Jay wrote, how long after you started studying Buddhism did you start to teach it? Please and thank you. So, first I mastered it, and then I mastered the ability to teach it. And those are two different things. So it's possible to master the teachings. If you're truly fortunate and you have a good teacher, you can master the teachings according to the second to the final passage of the Satipatthana Sutta. It's possible to master the teachings within 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, within 7 fortnights, 7 weeks, or even 7 days. Although most Westerners, it takes them about 4 months just to master sitting. Just because we haven't been doing it in our own life, and it takes a few weeks to master, Bengali crease counting. But those are inconsequential. The question is, do we when we teach someone, we're kind of like an open heart surgeon. We're kind of like a brain surgeon. A slip of the lip, and they're eating pudding for the rest of their lives with glazed-eyed, slack-jawed, breathing from their mouth. Not a pretty sight. So out of empathy for others, we really want to make sure we got this stuff down. And so what I recommend is that people collect 10,000 hours of formal practice, as well as 10,000 hours of formal study. Fortunately, I'm going to sound like an arrogant dog, forgive me, I don't mean to, but you have it easier than I did. You have a teacher on tap. You can bring your questions to every live stream and have it answered in real time. You can bring your questions before a live stream and have it answered during the live stream, so you have an actual record of your answer, whatever turns you on, whatever floats your boat. So your journey could be easier than mine was. Mine was really, really, really difficult. So 10,000 hours of formal study and 10,000 hours of formal practice seems daunting unless you break it down. For instance, if someone studied for an hour, let's say 5 a.m. and 5 p.m., just arbitrarily, picking numbers out of my left nostril. And let's pretend someone sat in a live stream, every day at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Once again, these are random numbers. Then within 14 years, they would accumulate 10,000 hours of meditation and 10,000 hours of study. If someone did it 4 times a day, if they studied, let's say, at 5 a.m., 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 5 p.m., and if someone practiced at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m., then within 7 years, they would have their 10,000 hours. Now, some people can spend 50,000 hours and they just don't get it. Some people, bless their hearts. I had one student who seldom passed a pop quiz. And I would feed her the answer. She still wouldn't get it. But it's been my experience that if someone's heart is good and someone's really going for it, they can do it in 7 years. In Tibet, classically, they say that do a retreat for 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, and 3 hours, and then you're a Lama. Well, not all Lamas are created equal. Contemporary neuroscience has hitched upon the idea of 10,000 hours, which can be accomplished during 2 3-year retreats, or which I round up to 7 years. You know, because the 3 months and the 3 weeks and blah 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 blah. Not everyone can practice as if on retreat. Not everyone can study and for 4 hours a day and practice 4 hours a day. If you can, marvelous. Some people they can only have time to do that twice a day, once every 12 hours. Study once every 12 hours, practice once every 12 hours. That's great. 14 years, you can really make a shit ton of practice. Basically, think of it this way. The first 5,000 hours of study and practice, you are mastering the subject. And the second 5,000 hours of study and the second 5,000 hours of practice, you are mastering yourself. You're still going to have the full spectrum of human experience, the full spectrum of perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. You're not going to be disassociated. You're not going to be emotionless. You're not going to be Mr. Spock, although the pointy ears are rather cool. You're going to be a human of flesh, blood, and bone, but a really healthy, happy, well-adjusted one, an insightful one who is truly a lifetime learner. I hope that answers your question. Now let us sit in meditation. And you could conclude, dude, it sounds like it's easier to become a Buddha than a fully accomplished teacher. And the answer is, yeah. According to the legend, after the Buddha accomplished full enlightenment, he didn't start teaching for 7 weeks. He was like, dude, how do I teach this? So the Buddha was no mental midget. The Buddha was a giant, metaphorically speaking. I mean, who's groomed all his life for greatness. Athletic greatness, intellectual greatness, ethical greatness. He spent he had a very arduous journey to enlightenment. But even he recognized that just because someone's enlightened doesn't mean they're ready to teach. And so he waited for 49 days until he delivered his first discourse, that upon the Four Noble Truths. Let us explore determining, doing, deceiving, and the meaning of life together. In this dark age, what people think and do is vile. None of them will help you, they could deceive and trick you. And for you to be of any help to them will be hard. Would it not be best to quit the whole rat race? One of my intentions is this text has been my North Star for decades. And I want to teach it in a way that simplifies other people's journey to mastery. Additionally, while if one could also perhaps join Toastmasters and get more and more comfortable with public speaking, if one could listen to non-fiction audiobooks written by novelists, that could give one a greater command of the English language and of the ability to communicate effectively. These things are powerful tools. This next quatrain, we're going to explore devotion, nurture, and love, or kindness as its own reward, together. Though you serve your so-called superiors, they might never be pleased. Though you look after your so-called inferiors, they might never be satisfied. Though you care about others, they might not care about you. Think about it and make a firm decision. Every time you see an italicized word at standard font, that's me making an adaptation. Every time you see me putting a word in brackets, that's me making an amplification. Some people think my adaptations and amplifications are awesome. Other people think they are evil. Together. Being learned these days might not help the teachings, it could just lead to more debate. Being realized these days might not help others, it could just lead to more criticism. Being in a responsible position these days might not help it govern the country well, and might only spread revolts. Think about these times with sorrow and disgust. Though you explain, people could miss the point or simply not believe you. Though your motive... Oh, here we go. Though your motivation is truly altruistic, people might think it is not. These days when the crooked see the straight is crooked, you might not be able to help anyone give up any hope of that. This is a scary thing. To just move from centered spontaneity, free from the tyranny and the neurosis of our own agenda, is quite the accomplishment indeed. All phenomena are like magical illusions in the Buddhas, but these days the illusions are more illusory than ever. Trickery is conjured up by devious illusionists. Beware of the illusions of this degenerate age's ways. Welcome to this morning's live stream. Let us practice during our inhalation. Let us practice mindfulness as silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun this. During our exhalation, let us practice meditation as silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb ease. Let's chant together. All talk is like an echo, said the Buddhas, but these days it is more like the re-echo of an echo. What the echoes say and when they mean are not the same. So do not take any notice of these insidious echoes. Let us rest in mindfulness and meditation. Let's chant. Whoever you see is not human but a fraud. Whatever people say is not right but just lies. So since these days there is no one you can trust, you had better live alone and stay free. Let's chant. If your actions conform with Dharma, you could honor many beings. If your words are truthful, most people could get angry. If your mind is truly good and pure, they could judge it a defect. Now is the time to keep your own way hidden. During our inhalation, let us kick back and simply watch the antics of mind. The antics of minds, perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, as silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun this. During our exhalation, let us relax into mind's non-graspable nature, as silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb, ease. Hide your body by staying alone in the mountain wilderness. Hide your speech by cutting off contact and saying very little. Hide your mind by being continuously aware of your own false alone. This is what it means to be a hidden yogi. Please chant with me. And oh yes, welcome aboard. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Together, let's chant. Discuss because there could be no one to be trusted. Sadness because there could be no meaning in anything. Determination because there could never be time to get everything you want. If you always keep these three things in mind, some good could come of it. So, quick like a bunny, Let me see if I can be clever. Having some trouble with coordination. Let's do this. Okay. Let us practice mindfulness during our inhalation by silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this. Let us practice meditation during our exhalation by silently and mentally reciting the one-syllable verb is. So let us not confuse mindfulness with concentration. Concentration is a symptom of being rigid and fearful and controlling. Instead, let us be flexible and loving and laid back and allow things to happen. Allow us to perceive, emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine that which is external and internal and physical and mental and pleasurable and painful and interesting and boring and glorious and grotesque. Let's chant. There is no time to be happy, happiness is over just like that. You do not want to suffer, so eradicate the exacerbation of stress with Dharma. Whatever happiness or stress comes, recognize it is the power of your past actions. And from now on, enjoy freedom from the tyranny of dreads or desires regarding anyone at all. This is a collection of 82 quatrains. And this quatrain is one of my favorite. I'm so excited to share it with you. Let's chant. Expecting a lot from people, you do a lot of smiling. Needing many things for yourself, you have many needs to meet. Making plans to do this, making plans to do first this, then that, your mind is full of hopes and fears. From now on, come what may, do not be like that. As we inhale, let us kick back and watch the antics of mind as silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun this. As we exhale, let us silently and mentally, let us relax into mind's non-graspable nature as silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb ease. Even if you die today, why be sad? It is the way of samsara. Even if you live to be 100, why be glad? Youth will have long since gone. Whether you live or die right now, what does this life matter? Just practice Dharma for the next life. That is the point of letting go of hating and craving. So practicing for next life is a metaphor for practicing for the sheer pleasure of practicing without having a lofty goal. For if our practice is not pleasurable, then in the words of Bugs Bunny, we've taken a wrong turn at Albuquerque. So I'm going to put a pin in this. Let's see, Control G 144. No, 114. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could also help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.